Hey everybody, welcome to the Jim Masters Show, entertainment, lifestyle, celebrity talk show series. This is your host, Jim Masters. It's so great to have you with us. Hope you guys are having a great day today. If you're not, stick with us, as I always say. We're going to put some smiles on your face. We've got an extraordinary guest who's coming from Seattle, Washington today. Yes, from the other side of the country. You guys know we're here on the East Coast and the New York, New Jersey, Connecticut area, along the southern New England coast between New York and Boston, here in the USA. We welcome our viewers who are watching from all around the world. Yeah, we've got viewers all across the United States, Canada, all throughout North America, South America, also Europe and Africa and Asia and Australia, New Zealand. And we welcome you all. Thanks for stopping by the show. We've got an amazing guest who is extraordinary. And Robert Dugoni is here, critically acclaimed best-selling author extraordinaire. I want to tell you just a little bit about him. It's amazing. Critically acclaimed New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, #1 Amazon best-selling author of the Tracy Crosswhite police series set in Seattle, which is where he is right now, which has sold more than 8 million books worldwide. He's also the author of the Charles Jenkins espionage series, the David Sloane legal thriller series, and several standalone novels, including The Seventh Canon, Damage Control, and the literary novels, The Extraordinary Life of Sam Hell, Suspense Magazine's 2018 Book of the Year, for which Robert's narration won an AudioFile Earphones Award, and the critically acclaimed The World Played Chess, as well as the nonfiction exposé, The Cyanide Canary, a Washington Post Best Book of the Year. Several of his novels have been optioned for movies and television series. Robert is also the recipient of the Nancy Pearl Award for Fiction, a 3-time winner of the Friends of Mystery Spotted Owl Award for Best Novel set in the Pacific Northwest. He has also been a finalist for many other awards, including the International Thriller Award, the Harper Lee Prize for Legal Fiction, the Silver Falchion Award for Mystery, and the Mystery Writers of America Edgar Award. His books are sold in more than 25 countries and have been translated into more than 30 languages. That's right, folks. Here's just some. This is just some of the many, many, many books that he has penned. He is a prolific writer, and you may even have some of these in your collection, folks. If not, I would absolutely recommend. There is the one we're going to talk about. We'll talk about a couple of them for sure, but here's one of the newest, Her Deadly Game. We're going to talk about that one. Hot off the presses. Is that particular one. But look at some of these others, huh? A lot of reading material for you guys. I know you guys love books and you love following the authors when we have authors here on the show. And again, Robert is stopping by. He's always got books all around him. I asked him if he has, after writing so many books all these years, does he have carpal tunnel syndrome? And he's in an ergonomically correct chair, and he's, all set and ready to go. And that's cool. We are so excited to have him here on the show. Again, he is stopping by from Seattle, Washington. If you want to comment while the show is on, you can comment when you subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's Jim Masters TV. That's the channel where this show is broadcasting from right now. So if you want to comment right now while the show is on, say hello to one another, say hello to us. You can certainly do that. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, Jim Masters TV, costs nothing. And in our JMS Levity Hall chat room, as we call it, it's a chat room that happens when the shows are airing. You can actually chat right now with one another and say hello to one another and say hello to us. And of course, if you enjoy this episode, give it a like, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and all those other fun things that really do help us continue to grow and expand here at JMS. Again, it's such an honor and a pleasure. He's such a busy guy. So to actually stop by and spend the time with us he's about to spend, we really appreciate that. Let's welcome Robert to the show, coming to us again, direct from Seattle, Washington. Here he is. Robert, welcome to the show.
Hey, Jim. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
The pleasure is all mine. It's a real privilege to have you here. I'm a fan of your work. And I know when we were telling our viewers that you were coming on the show, people were extra excited because there's a lot of people who are fans of your work. How did you get started early on? What were the inspirations growing up in your home that pointed you in the direction of wanting to become a writer?
Well, ironically, I think probably the biggest thing was I was a bit of a turd as a young man. I have older brothers and sisters, and so I was sort of a pop off in school and would get in trouble. And finally had a kindly nun in the 6th grade named Sister Mary Williams, who called my mother in and basically told her that she thought I was bored, and that did I have other things that my mom could, kind of supplement my schooling with. And my mom, before she started having 10 kids, uh, began handing me, she was an English literature teacher, so she started handing me books. And I didn't really understand what I was getting, but the Count of Monte Cristo, The Old Man and the
Oh,
Sea,
wow.
Gatsby, Of Mice and Men, and To Kill a Mockingbird, and all these classic books. And I fell in love with the stories. I fell in love with characters. I just thought it was, amazing to read about all these lives and people doing things, and that it was all created. It was all came out of somebody's imagination. So for me, that was really the start of it. I knew right then that that's really what I wanted to do.
So when you decided that's what you wanted to do, how did you foster the path? How did you create the path to wanting to do it and then actually initiating? Were you always writing in school? Were you always doing short stories? What was it about it that's really gripped you to make it a career?
Yeah, well, again, it was more outside forces. I got to
Yeah.
high school, and my was a star basketball player, and so that's what I wanted to be. And didn't quite work out that way. Went in to see the basketball coach, my junior year, and he basically looked at me and said, "You can't shoot, you can't dribble, and you can't rebound. What am I going to do with you?" And I said, "Well, put me on the team." And he said he had another idea. And the short of a long story is, he said, the journalism program needs an editor, and I heard you can really write. Why don't you go see Joe Schaefer? So I did. And coach told me that I could make whatever decision I made. He'd say that I made the team. And I said, if it's all the same to you, coach, I think I'll go be the editor-in-chief of the newspaper. So it was really journalism. I started in journalism in high school. I had a teacher come in from Stanford University and to the program, and invited me to go there and to study journalism and creative writing there, which I did. And then I got chicken, as I think a lot of young people do. I started asking myself, well, can I really make a living at this? Or am I going to be, sent to some small little town in the middle of nowhere, knowing no one, and blah, blah, blah. And so I had a bunch of friends going to law school at UCLA, and I decided, well, I'll go to law school and I'll write books. Like Scott Turow, wrote the Harvard 1L. I could do that.
Right.
No, you can't. I like to tell people that I studied misrepresentation and torts, and I knew all the elements of it, because when I got out, I wanted to sue Scott Turow for misrepresentation. Very, very, very difficult. And then, I became a lawyer, and, a lawyer that's a full-time job. I mean, when you're not
Yes.
actually
Yeah.
working on a case, you're trying to drum up more business. You're trying to bring in things. And it was just very difficult. But again, reached a point after about 14, 15 years, I was a partner in a San Francisco law firm. I just woke up one morning and said to my wife, I can't do this anymore.
Mm.
And, she was great. She was great. She said, then we won't. And we moved from San Francisco to Seattle because we had a house we could live in very inexpensively. It was her grandmother's old house before she remarried. And that was my start. That was my opportunity. So I went up to Seattle, and I failed miserably for about, 4 or 5 years until I sort of learned, well, you got to figure out how to do this. And I did. And things then started popping.
That's amazing. That's really amazing. And how has Seattle been for you as just a place to do it all?
It's got an incredibly vibrant writing community. I don't know if it's because of the weather we get up here, a lot of gray, a lot of drizzle. But, when I first moved up here, I kind of moved up here kicking and screaming. I was leaving behind all my friends, all my brothers and sisters, and all that. but as I've, settled in here, I've been up here now for about 25 years. I really enjoy it. I like the pace. I like the location. I like the setting, the scenery. And it's a great place. It's a great place to be a writer. There's, like I said, there's a very vibrant community up here. Kristen Hanna's up here. A lot of really well-known writers. And, I've just sort of fallen into the writing community up here.
Which is fantastic. So when you decided to really make this, give this a go, how did you know what the style was going to be, the format, what the material, the content was going to be, what your style, were you always still sort of tweaking your style, what it was that you wanted to really focus on in terms of genres, or was this something that you knew early on?
Well, no, I didn't. And that's one of the reasons why I failed miserably for years. Because, people always tell you right from the heart. Well, I like to say to people, well, if I said to you, here's a violin, play it from the heart, what would it sound like? It's the same thing. You can write from the heart, but, writing is a craft. Yeah. And because it's a craft, there's a format to it. There's a way to tell a story. There's a way to bring a story to a climax. There's a certain type of ending that is satisfying to readers. So, after failing miserably, I started reading a lot of books on craft, on how to tell a story. Chris Vogler's book on the writer called The Writer's Journey, and Saul Stein's book on writing. And I started, really digging into these things and teaching myself really, how to tell a story. And as far as genres went, the easy thing, and I mean easy only because I was a lawyer, was legal thrillers exploded at that time. That's when John Grisham and Scott Turow both took off with, Presumed Innocent and The Firm. And, you couldn't, what publishers couldn't throw a rock without hitting a lawyer who wanted to be a writer. And I was one of them. So I kind of fell into writing legal thrillers to start with. I wrote the David Sloane series about a lawyer who can't lose. He's that good. And I wrote 5 books in that series. But as you mentioned, I didn't really know what my voice was. I didn't know, what really, people were going to go to the store and say, I want to pick up a Bob Dugoni book. What exactly did that mean? And I didn't really understand that until I wrote My Sister's Grave, which was the first book in the Tracy Crosswhite series. And that's when I really started to understand better who I was as a writer. I'm not going to write a lot of blood and guts. I'm not going to write a lot of gore. I'm not going to write a lot of explicit sex scenes, but I'm going to write fast-paced. I write more journalistically than I don't write Faulkner type of sentences that are 3,000 words. More Hemingway type sentences, shorter, punchier. But I try to keep the story moving, whether it's a mystery and it's being moved by, who done it, or whether it's a literary novel and it's being moved by more emotional and sentimental purposes. I just really try to cut out the parts of the story that are not active.
Tell us about as I mentioned in the introduction, which you just alluded to a little bit, the various series that you have. There could be, I know there's a lot of fans of your work watching, which is fantastic, but there might be some newbies watching who are looking for some new reads and some new authors. Tell us about the various series that you have, because every single one is unique and has been highly regarded and revered.
Yeah, thank you. I've had just a marvelous career. And I started out, as I mentioned, writing legal thrillers. Yeah. And then sort of necessity, I moved over to police procedurals, which were, one of the biggest genres out there, mystery books, right? People love to pick up mystery novels. And I started with a character named Tracy Crosswhite, a Seattle female homicide detective, working in a male-dominated profession. She's the first female homicide detective in Seattle. She's based on someone that I got to know when I started doing research into the police procedurals and how police work. So the Tracy Crosswhite series is really sort of what put me on the map. And it really took off. It just exploded. I just turned in the 10th book in the series. It's called One Last Kill. And we keep getting more pre-sales, which is, a little unusual. A lot of series are about 3 books. But this one, people have really taken to it. So with the Tracy Crosswhite series, I've then had some opportunities to write different kinds of books. I had a gentleman get in touch with me who was a former CIA officer. And we sat down to chat about a couple of things, and I realized what a valuable resource he would be. And so I went back and took a character from the Sloan novels named Charles Jenkins, and he's a former CIA officer in those books. And so I created the Charles Jenkins series, which is a 3-book series that starts with the Eighth Sister, the Last Agent, and the Silent Sisters. And those take place with him being called back into duty in Russia. So we all know what's happening in Russia in the real world, right? And so I'm not sure if I'm going to continue that series, or if I am, I'm probably going to turn it into something outside of Russia, just because, you never want to look like you're trying to capitalize on an unfortunate situation. And then I had these literary novels, which as I mentioned, I grew up reading literary novels. That's really what I thought I wanted to do. And so The Extraordinary Life of Sam Hell was my first literary novel. And then I wrote The World Played Chess, and both of those books just exploded and sort of really blew me out in terms of an author that people got to know, because literary novels are novels that book clubs, get together, and they want to have you on as a guest now, because we can do this all by Zoom and things. So I've done probably 70 or 80 book clubs in the last 2 years, and it's been fabulous. Those things have taken off. And most recently, my editor, Gracie Doyle, got in touch with me and said, you write really good courtroom dramas. Would you consider going back and writing another, legal thriller? And what I told her was I would, but I wanted to do it my way. I wanted to make it uniquely, a Bob Dugoni book, which means I wanted police procedural involved in it, and I wanted family dynamics that I, had in my literary novels. And that's where the Kira Dugan series comes in. That's where her Deadly Game, which just came out, comes into play. And that's the first book in a series. Before you and I got on the air here, I was doing research on hopefully what will be the second book in the series. And Kira is a former prosecutor who, because of a bad relationship in the prosecutor's office, goes to work for her father in his famous legal defense firm, something she swore she would never do because her father is a binge drinker. He's an alcoholic. She had some bad experiences when she was a kid in terms of him embarrassing her, and she never wanted to work for him. Plus, her 2 older sisters are in that firm, and they treat her like a child. She's, they're her mother. So you have all those family dynamics coming into play. And that's really what I wanted to do with her Deadly Game.
It's really incredible because Kira was building a solid reputation as a Seattle prosecutor until her romantic relationship with a senior colleague ended badly. Tell us a little bit more about it.
Well, I think
it's very intriguing. I know our viewers' ears have just perked up. Romantic relationship? What?
I think that's something we all probably have been guilty of, right? Making the wrong choices in the wrong places. I certainly did that once and said I would never do it again. But, she makes a mistake. She's young. She's looking for a relationship. She thinks she finds it in this older attorney who just happens to be her supervising boss. And she starts to realize he has a lot of the characteristics that her father had. He drinks too much. There's a lot of things going on. She tries to professionally and delicately step out of the relationship. He makes that very difficult for her. She goes to work for her father's criminal defense firm. She's dealing with her sister. She's dealing with her father. And suddenly she gets a phone call. She's the attorney, the defense attorney who's on call. She gets a phone call from a man who's been accused of murdering his wife, a very wealthy financial investment man by the name of Vince LaRussa. And this is the case that the firm really needs to get back on its feet. The firm has started to fail because of her father's, drinking. He's not the attorney he once was. And she sees this as an opportunity to really sort of both branch out who she is and also restore the firm back to sort of its glory as one of the top defense firms in Seattle. The problem is the prosecutor is her former romantic interest, Miller Ambrose. So she has a lot of conflicts going into the courtroom to try to defend Vince LaRussa.
Mm. What inspires you to come up with these incredible stories that really, grab hold of the reader and doesn't let them go? They get immersed, they get invested, they soak it all up. They can't get enough of your material. But when you're writing, when you're getting started and putting, pen to paper, what are some of the things that inspire these incredible stories that you pen?
It can be, Jim, it can be a number of different things. It could be something that I've read. It could be something that I've come across. But I think really what story comes down to is character. And, a lot of the characters are people that are a part of me. I think every writer writes from within themselves, and the characters that they create in one shape or another are a version of who that person is. And what sort of shaped me growing up. My mother's father was an alcoholic. He was a very successful dentist in San Francisco, but he was also a binge drinker. And, my mom didn't talk about it a lot, but the part she did talk about were the parts about, being embarrassed, where her father would be at work and he'd go out for lunch and he'd be drunk as a skunk. And she'd have to, at 12 years old, she'd have to go stand out, in the reception area and tell all his patients that he was sick while he would be in the background carrying on, and you wonder how that impacts a young lady, a young person at that point in time. So, a lot of that are things that I remembered, growing up. I practiced law, obviously, for a number of years. And so, some of the characters in the courtroom are people that I came across in my own practice, or, version of those people. And then the family dynamics. I grew up in a family with 10 kids. I have 9 siblings, and, we're all different. Genetics are very interesting. But we have type A personalities. I'm probably fit into that category. We have type B, very easygoing personalities. I got a brother that's like that. I got a sister that's, just an angel. She's just a phenomenal person. I have other, sisters that are a little bit more caustic. So it's just growing up. It's just paying attention to the people in your world.
We won't list the names of which fit in those categories.
we will not.
Because that'll be another book. That'll be a mini series of which some of these, being optioned for television and film and more. That's going to be quite exciting. Tell us about those opportunities.
Yeah, it's interesting the way that all comes about. I am not I love watching television. I grew up watching movies. I fell in love with movies. My dad was a huge movie watcher. He's the one that got me into watching movies like, Casablanca and, all the famous ones, Trapeze, and all those things. And so I really loved watching movies. But I'm not a screenwriter. And, but I have been fortunate in that interest has been expressed in the Charles Jenkins series was purchased and is now at CBS Studios. The Extraordinary Life of Sam Hell has been picked up, and there's a screenplay being written with respect to that book. Tracy Crosswhite is being talked about. Her Deadly Game, which just came out, is in the process of, we have had one offer come in, and there are more offers that are out there that we're expecting to come in, because it has all sort of the things that Hollywood looks for in that type of a story. A strong female character, vibrant, sort of a bad ex-boyfriend prosecutor, and then a mystery, a puzzle for viewers to try to figure out as the story is told. So, it's a long process. Television is a long process. But I'd love to see something come to screen. I think it'd be a lot of fun.
We're showing on the screen some of the series themselves as well. And then there's the standalone novels. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I got my start. In fact, just yesterday, I was talking to Joe Hildorfer, who was a former FBI agent. And he's moved to Hawaii. And I thought of him. We talked about the Cyanide Canary, which is a true story. about his investigation of an environmental crime that took place in Soda Springs, Idaho. And a young man that went into a cyanide tank, didn't know it was a cyanide tank, wasn't given any equipment to protect himself, nearly died. And it was the prosecution of the person that, ran that company. The Seventh Canon was a book I started writing when I was back practicing law, about a young lawyer in San Francisco in the 80s when I knew where the courthouse was from my own experience and all that. And then The Extraordinary Life of Sam Hell is the book that sort of really blew everything out of the water in terms of sales. It's the story of a young man born with ocular albinism, meaning he has red eyes, and he has to deal with the bullying that comes with it. Not just the bullying that comes from the students he goes to school with, but he's bullied by the school principal, who's a nun, Sister Beatrice. And it's the story of three misfits: himself, his buddy Ernie, who's the only black student in the entire school, and his really special friend Mickey, who is a tomboy. She's a girl that doesn't want to be a cheerleader and all those other things. She wants to play kickball when she's at recess, and she grows up to be very much the same type of person. So it's really a coming of age book about people that don't fit in, but find each other and find a friendship, a lifelong friendship in each other to help them get through life. And then The World Played Chess. That's probably the most ambitious book I've ever written. It's a coming of age story of a young man who at 18 years of age graduates from high school, takes a job on a construction crew with two Vietnam veterans. And one of the Vietnam veterans starts to go through PTSD. So that young man, Vincent, is now an adult, and he's got his own 18-year-old son who's about to embark on his senior year of high school. When Vincent gets a journal in the mail, and it's from one of the guys he worked with. And it's the year it's a documentation every day of the year that William lived and worked in Vietnam, in the bush. And he asked Vincent to read it in the order that it's written so that Vincent will understand what happened to William that summer when he began to have PTSD and culminated in some, pretty violent actions. I'm really proud of that book. I just was in South Carolina last week, and I met a gentleman that was a Vietnam helicopter pilot. He invited me out to Patriots Point to go see the exhibit that they have out there and give me a personal tour. And he read the book, and I was, for him to say to me, "You really captured it. You got it right," meant a tremendous amount to me.
What is it like, when you get feedback like that, when you're writing the books and the material because you love it and you're expressing, creativity and who you are, and you're entertaining people, educating them, informing them, enlightening them, and giving them opportunities to escape as well from the everyday. But at the same time, sometimes you really can touch somebody in ways you didn't even anticipate when you were putting the material together and publishing the book. And then somebody comes up to you and says, "I got to tell you that," and it's extraordinary, isn't it, when that happens?
It's incredibly humbling. It really, I think that's the best word I can describe. It's incredibly humbling to think that something that you created can have that kind of impact on people's lives. I've received emails from a woman, for instance, who told me that her youngest brother was named Michael, like my youngest brother, and that Michael was dying of pancreatic cancer. And so all of the brothers and sisters would gather around his bed at night and read him The Extraordinary Life of Sam Hell, because it was a book of hope and faith. Someone tells you that, and that's incredibly moving to have, Vietnam veterans say to you, "I've never read a book about the Vietnam War. I've never spoken publicly about the Vietnam War, but I read your book, and while it was very difficult, it was incredibly cathartic for me. And I'm now going to the VA hospital, and I'm in a support group," and things like that. You never really realize the resonance that your work can have in other people's lives, but when it does happen, it's incredibly humbling.
I could only imagine, really, and it probably spurs you on to keep doing the work, which again has been so highly awarded, and you've garnered so many accolades as well. Best-selling author here, there, everywhere. Not why you do what you do, but that's sort of a little bit of an icing on the cake a little bit too. Did that ever surprise you that people, not only the readers, but the peers in the industry also? I've always said, we absolutely love those who consume our material. In my case, the viewers, the listeners, that type of thing in my industries love, and without their support, nothing exists. Sometimes it's harder to get, and of course your family and friends, and they're always gonna, hey, you go get them. But sometimes it's harder to get it from the peers, people that are within the industry, and they know what it takes to do what has to be done. That must be cool too, when you get the accolades and the positive words from those that are in the industry, the colleagues, the peers.
Yeah, it really is. I can remember sitting in lectures at conferences and listening to these people talk about, their 10th novel and being on the New York Times bestseller list, being on this and that, or winning this award or that award, and doing really well, and sitting there thinking, man, I wonder if I'll ever get to that point, or thinking I'm never going to get to that point, and then suddenly you're at that point, and you're there, and you're on panels with those same people, and you're being acclaimed for books that you put out. And a good friend of mine who really inspired me, named Michael Colopy. He's probably one of the world's most renowned portrait photographers, taken presidents and popes and Mother Teresa and you name it. But he said to me years ago, he said, follow your dreams and the money will come. Follow the money and you lose your dreams.
Yeah.
And, I think that's a very poignant thing when you're in the arts. You have to follow your passion. You have to follow what you love to do. Where it's going to take you is not as important as the journey that you're on while you're doing it. And it's really been the journey that I have enjoyed more than anything. Now I sit on those panels and I'll have people come up to me and say, hey, is there any chance I could, get you to read a copy of my book and maybe get a blurb? And, I do my best to say yes every time, because you have been in that position. You have sat back there and you know how hard it is to break through. But I'll always tell them, I'll say, enjoy the journey. Don't be in a rush to get to the end, and enjoy the whole time that you're going through it, because it's really a unique experience.
It really is on many levels. We were on a TV shoot a couple years ago in Europe, and for a TV series, and there was somebody that was a part of the shoot who had never done any of this work before, wasn't an on-air personality, wasn't, but he was part of the production. And we were sitting down at dinner, all of us, the crew and everybody, and talking about, why we're doing what we're doing and everything. And we were chatting with him about, because he was all eager and everything, why he wanted to be a part of this. And he said, I want to be famous. And we're like, oh, well, that may come, but first you got to work, and you got to, create a name, and you have to offer something, and you've got to be good at it and talented, and you got to break through, and then you've got to be consistent. You got to maintain. You don't want to be one hit wonder. You've got to continue to produce and ride that wave. And there's a lot of work involved, and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and emotion, and financial investment, and sacrifice, and all those things you hear about. All of those things, working nights, working weekends, working holidays, whatever it takes to continue to build a momentum and keep it going. So we were explaining that to him, and he was like, what? Well, I know, like, I just want to be famous. I want fame. And we were trying to say, that's good, but that's not long lasting. If that's all there is you just want to be, quote unquote, famous, because if there's nothing underneath that. And then as our production was going along and the work started rolling, he was kind of like, wait a minute, you actually have to do this. You got to carry equipment. You got to, you got to do all this stuff. I'm not so sure. Maybe I'll, continue to make pizzas at the pizza place, which is what he does. His family owns a restaurant. And he decided to pretty much do that instead because he didn't realize the work that it takes to really, I mean, you can do something that will get you a quick hit. You know, on the internet these days, you can do something outlandish or crazy or nutty that'll get you that quick hit. But that doesn't mean it's going to sustain. It doesn't mean it's also going to be respected or credible or even attract the kind of vibe that you want surrounding your work, right?
Right. Right. I mean, you know, it's about wanting a career. And that's what I've always told, you know, new writers is, you know, are you looking to get a book published or are you looking for a career? And if you're looking for a career, then every book you publish has to be the first book you put out. What I mean by that is you can't bank on a reader having read you before and you have some track record with that reader. And so they're going to just buy it. No, there are so many readers out there that have not read me before and they'll pick up a book. It might be the book in the series. And if they don't like that book, if that book doesn't resonate with them, they're not going to read anymore. They're not going to go back and read the first 4 books. So every book that I put out, it has to be the first book that I'm putting out, meaning it has to be the best book that I am putting out because it might be the first book that a reader is reading of mine. And I want them to continue on and read my other stuff.
That's right. Exactly. You know, another series is Sloan's series. Tell us about this one.
So David Sloane is the legal series that I started when I, you know, first got out because I was a lawyer, because John Grisham and Scott Turow were, you know, going crazy. And I sort of fell into the same thing as the pizza guy that you just mentioned. You know, it was the low hanging fruit. I was a lawyer. I was a civil litigator. I knew the courtroom. I knew the settings. And so I knew how lawyers thought. So I created this lawyer who is based on a guy that I once saw in court that, you know, just couldn't lose. He was that good. And I created David Sloane and I began to create these books. You know, as well as these books did, I reached a point where, because of things that were going on at my publishing house at that time, and they didn't sell the way the publisher wanted. And so I had to start over again. You know, I had to recreate myself and I moved. That's when I moved to police procedurals and I wrote My Sister's Grave, which is the book that really sort of put me on the map. But I, you know, had to realize, it came to realize that if you want a career out of this, you have to be able to adapt. You have to be able to, make some changes to bury some characters that you love because they're just not going in that direction. And so, you know, I basically buried David Sloane, and I don't know if I'll bring him back or not. There are a lot of other books I want to write and characters I want to explore. But you do, as you said, you know, you have to put in the work, and sometimes that work includes starting over.
If you were writing for a soap opera, you'd be able to bring David Sloane back next week, because on the soap operas, a lot of the characters go off a cliff or something, and then they come back as the cousin or the ex-boyfriend.
He had a parachute.
The character, the audience didn't like that they killed off the character. So next week he'll be back. His hair will be shorter. He'll be married to a new wife, but he'll be back. That's a whole other style of writing, right? For the soap operas and all for the dramas. And have you toyed with, you know, stepping out of your realm into these other styles? Like you mentioned, not really a screenwriter, this, that, and the other. I'm sure people have solicited you, wanting you to write other types of material as well, huh?
I get asked, but you know, I'm 62 years old, right? So I know what I do well and what I don't do well. And one of the
things
you don't
look that at all.
Well, thank you.
That water in Seattle is nice.
No sun. But one of the things I really believe in is allowing people to do their jobs. I'm not a screenwriter, and if I wrote a screenplay, everybody in LA would be, who the hell is this guy? I would rather my screenplay get written by an adept screenwriter, someone from the A-list who has a lot of credentials to their name, who does this and knows how to bring a book to film, and what are the emotional resonance, that you need in it. So I think as we get a little older, we begin to understand our limitations and what we're good at. And I'm good at writing novels, and that's where my focus is. That's one of the real beautiful things about my relationship with Amazon Publishing, is they take care of all the social media and all that stuff. I'm involved in it, but my job is to write the next novel. And that's really what I love to do. That's what I'm good at. And I stay in that lane.
Some of the material, I know our viewers probably thinking too, boy, his stuff would be great on the Lifetime Movie Network and all these other networks that exist, those channels that are out there. You never know, right? Some of it could be, or Netflix, Amazon Prime. I mean, there's so many avenues now, as opposed to just the traditional avenues to get material out there these days.
Yeah, no, there really is. I mean, I grew up with, when's the Wizard of Oz going to be on that one time of the year,
Yes,
and we didn't have a
right.
color TV. We used to have to run. We were kids. We used to have to run across the street to Mrs. Pilgrim's house to watch
Right.
Dorothy open the door and be color.
Was it like Easter weekend on CBS or something, right
Yeah.
around there?
And gosh, now, it's like you mentioned, there's Hulu, and there's so many different outlets, and my son, we were out at the Kraken hockey game last night, and he said to me, I got some TV shows you got to watch. And, he's given, I hadn't even heard of them, and he's been watching them and says they're great. So there's a lot of different avenues for content. And I like, as I said, I would love to see a really adept screenwriter take Her Deadly Game and turn it into an 8-part, series, first season series. And, I'm hoping that that's going to happen.
That would be fantastic. Who is, and again, it can really run the gamut, I would imagine. When you write, are you thinking of the reader? Do you have a certain demographics? Do you visualize who the readers are, or is it really anybody?
It's really anybody. When I write, it's interesting. I don't outline my books, so I don't know where my books are necessarily going. I do a tremendous amount of research, and then I sort of get to a point where there's really not more research I can do. And I begin to sort of just let the characters tell me the story. A good example I'll give you is I have a book coming out. It's a historical novel. It takes place in 1933, Seattle, Washington. There's a murder in a nightclub called the Pom Pom nightclub on Profanity Hill in Seattle. If that doesn't scream story, I don't know what does. It's a true story. It's based on a true story. And it's a trial. And I thought I was going to write it from the perspective of the young defense attorney. I have all these clippings. My wife's grandfather was a well-known Seattle lawyer, and he kept scrapbook. So I had hundreds of clippings of this trial. And I thought I was going to do it from this young attorney. And all of a sudden, no, it was going to be a reporter working for the smallest newspaper in town. He's young. He's 19 years old. He's eager, but he's naive. And William Schumacher is going to tell this story. And, because I've had enough experience with my writing career, I'm much more comfortable saying, okay, go ahead. Tell me the story. What happened? How did you go from Kansas City in the middle of a depression to Seattle, Washington, to working for the Daily Star? And how did you get this big trial as you're going to cover it? And, he just started telling me the story, and it started to unfold, and I think that's where the concentration for me really is. It's allowing the character to tell me the story so that when the reader picks up the book, the characters are telling the reader the story. And that's really what you want. It's an immersive experience. You want the reader to become immersed in the characters and in the prose.
So when you had that location in mind, Profanity Hill, I would imagine the first draft was written in cursive.
Very good, very good.
Yeah, the Irish humor comes out.
There
Yes.
you go.
Yeah, you got to laugh too, right? Levity is so important.
Well, it's interesting. There's a really well-known bookseller in Scottsdale, Arizona, at the Poison Pen. Her name's Barb Peters, and Barb once said to me, she said, "You're funny. How come none of your characters are funny?" I was like, she said, "We need humor.
Yeah.
We need humor in our lives. If you can do it, do it." And I've always remembered that.
Have you thought of going in that direction a little bit and creating sort of,
Not in terms of, writing a comedic type of book, but writing books that have comedic situations in them. Like when Kira goes to dinner at her parents' house, she just dreads it, but you cannot get out of going to family dinner every Sunday night unless you're out of the country or you're dead. And she's neither of those. So she's got to show up. And, the whole family are just, they're characters. They're not caricatures, but they're characters. And that's where I try to let the humor live, is in those moments, which are funny and tragic at the same time. Her brother doesn't want to eat the salad that his sister made because there's not enough dressing on it. And the mother says, "Well, go get some dressing." And the sister gets upset. The mother says, "Oh, what do you care?" The sister says, "Fine. Get some ketchup while you're up for my pork loin." And the mother's like, "Don't you dare," those things that we all go through as in a family. That
sounds almost like a sitcom in a way.
Yeah, a little bit. I probably watched too much Seinfeld growing up,
Seinfeld,
with George Costanza and his family.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. The show about nothing.
Exactly.
That's true. I always like observational humor anyway. I always enjoyed, Norman Lear's amazing, but Neil Simon and just the way of thinking when even some of the comedians too, just the humor that is about everyday life, just about the craziness of living and the idiosyncrasies and the things we get all worked up over, I think is fascinating to me and it's also very relatable to the masses because everybody can find. It's like I Love Lucy. I Love Lucy is still a hit today because it's a simple premise and the characters you can connect with. And there's a warmth to it as well. And Lucy gets into all these crazy predicaments, but at the same time, there's love there and it's relatable situations.
Yeah.
And I think
even today.
Yeah.
Even today, it's the relationship between spouses, spouses and their neighbors. And then you bring in little Ricky and, it's something that is timeless and always will be timeless. The differences are in the period piece of it, but the characters' reactions and relationships to one another is timeless.
Who are some of the novelists, authors, writers that you always admired over the years coming up? Do you have personal favorites that you've read over the years that you've always enjoyed that maybe inspired you?
Pat Conroy. I loved Pat Conroy and his use of characters and the language that he did so well. John Irving, there were books of John Irving that, were really resonated with me. Stephen King. I don't read his horror. I'm a chicken. I'm one of those guys that, if I read a horror book, I'm sleeping with the lights on.
You're gone, right? Yeah.
But, his books like The Green Mile and 11/22/63, I think what I admired was his ability to write anything. He could write any genre. And I think that's where I learned it's not about genre. It's about character. It's about storytelling. And I just always was, taken with him. And then, of course, as I mentioned, the classics. But really, when I get asked that question, my answer is all the same, which is I will read anything. I have read romance. I have read chick lit. I've read Westerns. I've read mysteries. I've read thrillers. As long as there is a character that is relatable and there's a good story, I will read that book. I think that's really what my love is my love is in seeing the creativity of the characters. And it's always interesting when you read a book and you stop yourself and you say, wow, where did the writer get that? Where did they see that? Same thing with a good television show or a good mystery. It's really always, fascinating to me. What's the one that just won the Academy Award? Everywhere, Everything, All at Once.
Yes,
I
right.
mean,
Jamie Lee Curtis and the whole gang, right?
when all of a sudden they go, he goes into the closet and it's a whole new world. I'm thinking to myself, okay, where did this come from? I mean, the people that, or the person that wrote this has got to just be genius. And that's what I really admire, is I admire those books where I pick them up and I'm just really taken by the author's creativity.
Her Deadly Game, there's a Kindle edition as well, and audiobook with the Audible trial on Amazon. But there's, the stars are very high, and I think there's like thousands of reviews and comments, and this is unbelievable, huh?
Yeah, it really has taken off, and it continues to take off. And as you mentioned, the reviews are very high, and that really, I think, gets people going. But really, it's the word of mouth, and the word of mouth has been fantastic. I think people wanted a good game, and in this book, there is a chess game, and that chess game is both real. A real chess game's being played, but then there's a chess game being played symbolically, which is in the courtroom. So it's a little bit of a puzzle book, and those are fun. Those are fun books, and even though it's a very serious situation, the death of a woman who is disabled. It's a book that I think readers can pick up and have a hard time to put down, because I don't give them a lot of time to breathe. There's always something moving, something going on. And that's, sometimes I think that's what readers want. They just want some levity, something light, something, that's not going to make them go to bed feeling horrible about themselves.
Some escapism, not remind them of the day-to-day craziness and all the things they see on the news, and the world is ending again over and over. Right, exactly. Some of the comments, I just want to tell people, there's one person on Amazon that writes, admittedly, I'm a fan of Robert Dugoni's novels, but it's really good to see that he's back writing legal fiction because he has the master's touch.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
I love that. And with my name being Masters, having the master's touch is a pretty nice thing. Not too shabby. Why do you love doing this? Why do you love, expressing yourself in the way that you do? It's a sweet spot to be in. You've got your niche, and people really appreciate your work. You appreciate them as well. It's a nice symbiotic relationship. What is it about it that brings you the continued blessing and joy in your life, Robert?
Well, I think you just captured it when you said blessing and joy. I realize that it is a blessing to be able to make a living at what you are passionate about. And there's not a lot of people in the world that have that luxury. So I never lose sight of that this is a gift. This is a blessing. And, I grew up a performer. I grew up doing theater. I did theater as an adult when I was practicing law in San Francisco. I started getting cast in some long-running shows in San Francisco, and I just loved the arts. I love to go to theater now and watch theater. So I think I've always been a bit of a performer. I've been asked a couple of times to do the audio for my book, The Extraordinary Life of Sam Hell and the World Played Chess. And for me, I remember other authors telling me, you're going to hate it. You're going to love the first hour and then you're going to hate it. I loved every minute of it. I get to do every voice, every character, every emotion. And I think that some of us, we're just born with that in us, that desire to perform. And it's not an ego thing for me. I'm too old to have an ego. It's not an ego thing for me. It's the love of the art of it. Can I do this? Can I read this in a way that's going to emotionally touch someone? Can I write this in a way that's going to emotionally touch someone? And ironically, what it is it's leaving white space. Actors will tell you all the time, don't overact, because you want to give the reader the ability to assimilate for themselves what's going on stage. It's the same thing in writing. If you get too detailed about what's happening, then you don't give the reader the opportunity to use their imagination and immerse themselves in the story. So, it's performing in a way that allows the reader to enter your world. And that's really what I love.
Well, you've certainly done that, and people get lost in the world and they want more, which I think is absolutely incredible. And, kudos to you. Again, there's just some of the many books this gentleman has, our very illustrious guest has penned. Just a few we grabbed here. They're kind of like your children, right? They are, I asked this of folks who create characters and things of that nature. It really is like they are your children. You're very protective of them and the characters themselves, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And, I miss them.
Yeah.
When they're gone, I miss them. And that's why a lot of people will say to me, they hope it's a series because they want more of the character. And I know what that feeling is like. Both my characters are out of the house. Both my children are out of the house now.
Well, there are times they can be characters, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I miss them. And you just have to find other ways to interact.
Do they write?
They don't. They're more, they take after more of their mother's side. They're more business and finance and those kind of things. I have a daughter, though, that's incredibly creative. And so she came to me the other day and said, Dad, what's going on with your social media? Why aren't you on TikTok? Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? And I was like, I don't know how to do any of that stuff. And so she's going to help me with that stuff. So she's really creative. But, they'll find their way. We all find our way. I was in law and look where I'm at now. And, a lot of twists and turns in life. And you just have to enjoy them as you go.
Absolutely right. This was amazing, really, Robert. Congratulations on everything. And we're going to want to have you back. We'll keep the porch light on for you. You're welcome back on the Jim Masters Show anytime. There's the website, everybody, as well. The material is on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all the places you normally would go. But there's his website to learn about him and some other wonderful things he's done, working on, and other cool stuff. Hope you enjoyed the time with me as much as I have with you. This was really a terrific, as I say, I don't call these interviews, I call them conversations, sort of old school a little bit with a modern vibe. And it was a real pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure to be here, and I enjoyed it immensely.
I appreciate that. And as my dad has always said, told us this when we were 8 years old, Jim, whenever anybody says something kind or nice to you, ask them to please put it in writing and address it management. And as a writer, you would understand that greatly. Robert, thanks again for stopping by the show. Spread the word about our show. We really appreciate it all the time. And again, continued success and congratulations on the new material and everything thus far. We look forward to more from you.
Thank you very much.
You be well. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Cheers. Terrific conversation. Robert Dugoni here on the Jim Masters Show. Again, just want to show you the website. As I mentioned, we were showing some things from Amazon and other areas. You can go to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all the usual places. But there's his website if you'd like to see more of his work and learn a little bit more about him. Those of you who are super fans, all about Robert. He's really terrific. And you also got a chance, that's why we call these conversations, to learn a little bit more about the man behind the book, not just the book, not just talk about the new book and, okay, here's the book, where can you get it? All the usual stuff that always happens. Here, we like to dig a little bit deeper and give you a feeling for the person that is the creator of all the material that you're going to run out and get now. I know you guys, or that you are going to add to your collection, or maybe, you are a big fan already and you love all the material and everything that Robert has penned and continues to as well. And critically acclaimed best-selling author extraordinaire, truly terrific to have him here on the show. And it was an authentic conversation. It was a real conversation, and his books are amazing. The latest one that he's talking about that he hopes might even become like a series is this one, Her Deadly Game. And that's the one that there's over 5,000 reviews on Amazon. Bestseller extraordinaire, as I mentioned. Robert is a critically acclaimed New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, and #1 Amazon bestselling author. You might not have known he was a lawyer. You might not have known he was a performer. You might not have known he has 9 siblings. And it's cool stuff, right? And then they had moved up to Seattle, Washington. Yeah, what a great guy. Terrific conversation. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, we have a little homework for you. Can you do it? Give us a thumbs up on our YouTube channel on this episode and all the episodes you enjoy. There is a thumbs up icon that looks like this. Just click it. It really helps us. When you click the thumbs up, it allows our episodes through the algorithm that YouTube has. It actually allows our episodes to be seen by many, many more people around the world. Many of you ask, how can we help what you're doing? How can we support what you're doing? Even something as simple as giving it a thumbs up and leaving a comment underneath the episode. If you commented in the comments section, we see a lot of great comments there. Thanks for all the enthusiasm, the passion, and the comments during the airing of the show in the chat room. We really appreciate all that. We love you all. And but do leave a comment. Before you go, leave a comment in the comments section, which is right underneath the episode. That helps us too. And if you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel where we house hundreds of episodes of our series, there's a button that sort of looks like that. It's either red or maybe it's black. It says the word subscribe. Now, when you click subscribe, one other thing, very important, make sure you click the notification bell. There's a little bell icon next to the word subscribe, somewhere, right there next to the word subscribe. Click that, because you'll receive exclusive JMS show alerts in advance about all of our shows. And, who's on and when it's on, because sometimes we shift the time around based on the guest's availability, also based on my schedule, working on television and radio. So we're usually consistent with our air times, but sometimes we have to alter things a little bit because of the professional career in television and radio. Gang, this was awesome. I really hope you enjoyed yourself. It was really a pleasure to have you here, and spread the word about our show. Around here, we don't say goodbye. We say see you later. Ciao, cheers, slancha, shalom, sayonara, moi loop, avidazane, hasta la vista. What else do we say? Cheerio, take care, be well. One more time, let's thank our very special guest, Robert Dugoni, critically acclaimed best-selling author, stopping by exclusively the Jim Masters Show. Real pleasure to have him here. Always a pleasure to have you here as well. I am your host, Jim Masters. Thanks so much for being with us. Like, comment, subscribe. We'll see you on the next episode. If you want, binge watch, go back in time on our YouTube channel and check out some of the others. You might have missed some of the shows. If you're recent to our show, you've probably missed hundreds of episodes. You don't have to watch them all at once, but enjoy them. We got this series together here to entertain, inform, and have a good time with all of you and connect all of us. And it's really amazing. And thanks for all the great comments. And those of you who share the links on your social media, the links direct from our YouTube channel where it says share right onto your social media, promoting our episodes. Thank you so much. And those who have subscribed to our channel and do the thumbs up and leave the comments, we really appreciate that. It means a great deal to me and to all of us. So it takes a village, right? You guys be well. Take care. We love you all. And thanks for stopping by JMS, the Jim Masters Show. I am your host, Jim Masters. Thanking you for your time this time. Till next time. You take care. Be well. Stick around. If you're not watching this as it's airing, you're watching this in the archives. Another episode will come right up after this episode, and lots of great guests. Otherwise, we'll see you on the next one. Be well, gang. Yes, be well. I was just thinking about whether or not I should say Avita Zane again, if I should say cheerio again, if I should say slancha again, because I said it so fast. We always have a good time around here. Be well, gang. We love you all. And whatever you say, don't say goodbye. Say see you later. And we shall see you later. Strike Up the Band, the Jim Masters Show Orchestra and singers are going to take us out with our credits. Take a look at the credits and the Jim Masters Show theme as it plays. Be well. We'll see you on the next one. You got to have fun, right? Cheers.